Hi, didn't see you there. A lot of us have been, I think, been listening to the text between Sarah Boone and her brother, courtesy of the very generous and beautiful Tanika of Tanika's Two Cents. And of course, I have thoughts. The first thing that I thought of, and actually SKR mentions this as well, is what was the relationship like between Sarah and her brother prior to her being incarcerated? And I do have a few texts between them from 2019. I believe they're incomplete. They were not read during the trial, but they were on the screen with the other text that they were reading, mostly of Sarah berating and verbally abusing George's family and George. But I will put them on my screen, and as I said, I believe they're incomplete because it'll be something like, you don't see anything beforehand, but all of a sudden her brother will be asking, "You alive?" And 13, 14 hours later, Sarah will get back to him because she's not one to worry about. She doesn't mind when people just don't answer her right away. So she's very do unto others, that's Sarah Boone. And from what I can tell, it seems like a distant sibling relationship. He obviously is a better person than she is. He's a seems to have an similar to the tablet text. There is an obligatory vibe there. I mean, I think he's a stand-up guy. I think he's a pretty smart guy. I think he's a good person. I think he's a much better brother than a lot of people would be to her. He does like to use the word shitbag, which, all right. I mean, it's better than using the Bible all the time in a hypocritical way. So I'm not going to judge. And he is concerned. I mean, as we know, Sarah and his parents are deceased. That's pretty much it for them as far as immediate family, other than the incarcerated brother. Anyway, where was I? Yes. So I think that, although Sarah likes to throw it around when she even remembers that she ever had parents, because I don't think she's affected by any of that really. He's really the one who suffers here because he's alone and he's got her to deal with, and that's got to be a real heartache. So the texts between them show a very similar relationship as we see here, although much more seldom with the communication, as you can imagine, because Sarah, I think probably, I would almost guarantee it. I know this is going to be hard to believe, but I think she would get drunk. And then I think she would text everyone in her phone and berate everyone she could and, run wild in her townhome complex, call the police and all that, do what she does. And then eventually, at some point, she would bang out a text to Philip, which would be, um, to her brother, which would probably be concerning enough that he was probably pretty familiar with her work also, but it's still not ideal. It's not great. There were a few texts where she's sending him pictures, several in a row, and we don't see the pictures, of course, but we can imagine what they would probably be. And though that's probably what prompted the "You alive?" I'm not sure now, but it's all in the same kind of situation. And it was all in the month of June 2019, which seems to have been a very tumultuous month for Sarah and hence George as well. I find that the correspondence between Sarah and her brother are the most easy to navigate and kind of comprehend because Sarah, it's very ironically because she's always trying to get her point across so much. But of course, the more words you use, and this is for some reason she thinks it's the opposite. Like it seems like to her, the longer the letter, the more seriously it'll be taken, and the more better it is. I don't know what is wrong with her, but that's a given. But with her brother, first of all, I think he knows her best. With Brian being the second, they've both known her for quite a while. Of course, her brother has known her longer, and it's a very different dynamic. And he really knows her, and it shows. So there aren't hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of text exchange is, and she's not just going off the rails for thousands of words. She goes off a little bit, but she can't stay off for long because he's not having it. She doesn't necessarily apologize. That's not her bag, but she'll say, "Oh, what a miscommunication." I'm sure we've all read the same ones, heard the same ones. So she, at one point, first of all, we hear about Jumpin Java, we hear about Delicious Delights, we hear about Keep It Kosher, we hear about all the things that Sarah likes. And the Jumpin Java in particular, because coffee, she says, gives her the energy. Hang on, I have it written down. It's so ridiculous. Keeps her going and working on everything. There's also candy in the Jumpin Java box, by the way. I'd like to know what everything is. Because for all of her carrying on, she didn't crack open that box of Discovery. And when she went for the hearings and Judge Kranick asked her how much she went through, she was like, not even 2 JPEGs or whatever it was. And the only other reference I hear of it is when she's texting with Lana and she's saying things like, one reference will be, "I'm putting the laptop away now for the day. I need a break." Or, "I'm going to take the day off from working on my case today. I'm just exhausted." This one is so exhausted. So she needs that to keep her going for working on everything that she's working on. What she's working on and what she has been working on is Life Without Parole, done, achieved, and probably forfeiting all of her parental rights and alimony. But she's really worked overtime on that one. So that might be why she's so exhausted. So she asks him for certain things, and then, let's say he gets her Jumpin Java and Delicious Delights. Let's say the Jumpin Java shows up next day, not the Delicious Delights, or the other way around. It doesn't matter. Let's say she likes them equally. She will text him immediately, obviously, not to thank him, to let him know that whatever it is came, but the other one didn't. And now we are focusing only on the one that did not come. The one that came, long forgotten, And now she's going to task him, which would ultimately be, for most people, a full-time job. Track it, find out when they're sending it, let me know, get back to me, let me know for sure, get a tracking number, confirm that it was sent and when it's going to get here, all the things. This is like literally a full-time job, and every step of the way has to check in with her and let her to confirm with her. Because, she's busy. The phrase, "no good deed goes unpunished," came through my mind a lot reading these texts. She is impossible. If something is not done immediately, please, please, please do your best and do it and this and that, and it's cut off, and it's, everything is an emergency. Like when she called 911 and George is being arrested and she suddenly decided that she didn't have her car keys. She carried on about those car keys. And like, car keys, and where are they? And where are you going? So there's a deadline and we're not going to be able to do this anymore. And then if you don't send it now and this and that, the other thing, it is exhausting. And she is horrible. And she only thanks him or anyone, I've noticed, not for what she's received, but she will thank them futuristically. And what I mean by that is, make sure you track it and let me know and confirm when it's going to get here and, the tracking number. Thank you. Which really means do it. I can't believe, if I were, he must feel guilty in general about, just because it's his sister, and I don't know, but she wouldn't be getting a shit for me, I can tell you that much. Then, of course, we have the pictures situation, which is, this actually shocked me. And I know I always say it, we're not surprised, but we're still shocked. She is trying to get him to send her physical photographs, 5 to an envelope. She only says that about 700 times, just in case he didn't hear her the first 500 times. 5 to an envelope, and she wants them, she doesn't want, because he could also text them to her, but that would be too easy. So no, and she can't print them out. And my guess is, and I'm willing to guarantee it, she wants them to show around because we've already established the fact that she's is trying to act like she's got people and she doesn't. So she's trying to get pictures from anyone of anything, basically. So, which would be sad, except for it's her. So, there's a reason she has no one, no pictures of anyone. Kind of the same reason that she had no one, including her brother, I'll give him that, to stand up for her at her allocution, who she knew from before. So she's telling him the reason is that there's going to be a deadline. Pretty soon they won't be able to send physical photographs, which I doubt, but okay. That alone should be enough for her to say, just text them to me. I mean, the man is busy and he's got his own problems, and he's made that clear without complaining. I do think that he says that just to make sure, just because he knows the reaction he's going to get, and that kind of lets him know that he is correct and that he shouldn't go too crazy over her because she's a bitch, an ingrate. So she says, and I mean, a little time goes by before he sends them. I think he did send them, but it felt like a very long time because she was on his nuts about it 24/7. She was telling him, just take a few minutes and go to the mailbox and just mail them 5 per envelope. Or go to the post office and, for a few extra bucks, you can expedite them. Just the nerve on this bitch. And then she says that the reason that she doesn't want them text, first of all, she says it's $1 a download, and imagine how expensive that'll get. I'm thinking, first of all, how many pictures do you think he's going to send you? And since when do you care about expensive when it comes to texting and all that? I mean, what do you care? So that's the first reason she gives. So the second reason she gives is that she wants pictures of their mother, who she always brings up to manipulate him, never any other time, and of him to put in her Bible. She brings up the Bible on God a lot to him and to everyone, but to him in such a way that you would think that this was a religious family, and maybe they were, but he never says anything particularly religious. He'll say, keep your head up. I know it's tough for you in there, but I'm doing everything I can. He's not like, don't let Satan get you and whatever. I don't know. So, I mean, also, too late. So there's that, and she drives him crazy about the pictures, and because he cares about anonymity. Also, I assume this is what it is. Although she changes it, then I think she gets the pictures and she tells him that she's showing them to everyone, which was strange to me because I'm pretty sure he was not crazy about the idea, but who knows. So then we get to the, and she goes like in a loop. She doesn't just mention one thing. She has a whole thing of thing, and then she'll thank him futuristically, and then talk about the Jumpin Java, the tasty delights, the keeping it kosher, whatever it is, and then the bond, which we'll get to in a second, and the photos. Just one after the other. And when I was hearing this, a really old LL Cool J song came to mind, which is, that story is over, but my rhyme ain't done. Because Sarah's rhyme is never done. That story is over, but my rhyme ain't done. And speaking of which, then we have the bond. Sarah is willing to happily lie to her brother, put him right on Front Street, make him do all the things that he has been very clear he does not want to do, and will potentially put him in jeopardy, his job in jeopardy if he does. I don't know if that's true, but good for him if it isn't. She don't care. She does not care. She wants this bond situation, and she says, it's not like I'll ever be able to pay for, she's kind of double talking. It's important to her, but it's not like it will happen anyway. And she's making it sound like they just need an address. Like, what is the big deal? I mean, as if, well, in that case, just give him the address, the McDonald's down the block. Why are you bothering him? It is so incredibly, I don't even know the word. I'm at a loss. Speaking of, I've said this before, and other people have said this, but Sarah describes herself when describing others down to the actual relationship and the way that she treats them. In one of these texts, she describes Patricia Cashman as derogatory and vile. I mean, I couldn't describe Sarah that well, particularly the way she treated Patricia Cashman. And of course, her brother says to her, "Well, have Cashman." I mean, he's not an idiot. He says, "Well, have your lawyer call me." Sarah doesn't like that, of course, because anyone talking without Sarah present, they're talking behind her back. And because she needs to control the narrative. She wouldn't be able to control that narrative either, which is why she was probably hoping that she could be the middleman there. But he spoke to Patricia Cashman, and he got back to Sarah, and he said, "I like her. I think she's doing the best she can with what she's got. And she is going to try to work out a plea for you, and you should definitely take it." She later says to, I believe in a text to Christina Pena, that, I mean, she loses her mind. She has a total tantrum about that, obviously. And she's a liar, and just, So she's going off about it to Christina Pena, who was represented by Patricia Cashman and who ended up having the charges dropped. But the way Sarah presented it to her brother was she hated her, and Patricia wanted her to take 10 years probation, but she ended up having the charges dropped, and she had nothing. She just went home, and and I'm thinking, I bet Patricia was her counsel when that happened too. I mean, so, but she goes on, she spins a yarn, as we know, and Jay Stevenson in the comments brought up something that is very, I mean, it's not surprising, but it's interesting to see Sarah's wordplay. She tells her brother that Patricia Cashman has threatened her, and Christina also, she says at some point, threatened her with a life sentence. Think about that. Now, what she means, of course, is told her, guess what? You could get a life sentence, take the plea. But Sarah turns that into threatened me with a life sentence, as if Patricia Cashman said, I'll give you a life sentence if you don't take this plea. Why on earth would these lawyers be so against? Why would they be so against her? I suppose because what else could it be? Why would she get life for the suitcase thing? Is one isolated incident, Like, she cannot accept anything she does not want to accept. And I always say this, but that her reaction to the first time that Chelsea and Scott showed her that video showed me a lot about Sarah Boone and how she handles tough situations. Guys, this is killing me. I don't want to see it. So, and that is truly how she is, but to the point where it's very, very difficult to comprehend. So I felt for her brother, and when you think about it, I mean, he's got Sarah, not good, and their other brother, who incidentally, and maybe this has been brought up more times than I realized, but he's not just incarcerated a few times for the one thing that's always mentioned involving someone who's not an adult, but he also had too many cats. He would urinate on his lawn in public view, not just once, probably not just his lawn. So he's, he's a similar neighbor as Sarah Boone was. Oh no. Sarah called Cashman derogatory and vicious. That's what it was. And that's Sarah. There are a few texts, of course, between her and Brian and the son, and they're all just disgusting. And I mean, the repeating. She sounds like a homeless crazy person. She's just this rambling and repeating. But Sarah's not crazy. It's very clear that she is not crazy. She's just horrible. I mean, there's something wrong with her for sure, but it's not. I also saw something that I haven't noticed in one of SKR's videos, which I've only watched, 10 times. It's from a few days ago. Possible that I slept through this part every time, but today I finally heard it and I thought this was interesting. It was a text between Sarah and Lana. And once again, Sarah describes herself with such accuracy when telling Lana what her problem is. It's sad you've stooped this low and ended up this way. Just a quick word from our sponsor, and I'll be right back.
If you don't know what we're talking about, Sarah Boone is facing second-degree murder charges. Investigators say she stuffed her boyfriend, Jorge Torres Jr., into a suitcase during a game of hide and seek back in 2020. She even recorded his pleas for help.
So sometimes your comments are so funny that I screenshot them. And the other day I had got a comment from Dana Lynn, who said that at trial time, Sarah instructed the jailhouse hairdresser, give me the Miss Clairol 5.1 Ultra Mousy Brown. And I thought, we should really answer some of these questions. Wrong answers only. Here are the questions, and I will maybe write them in the description in case you have to go back and peruse them. What was Sarah's nickname in high school? What name do the other inmates call her behind her back? The name of the salon Sarah used to get her haircut. Name of her autobiography. It's a tough one because there are so many options. If Sarah were to describe herself in an online dating profile, what would she say? If she asked you to write it for her, what would you say? What is Sarah's signature scent? If Sarah gets a tattoo, what will it be or what will it say? What is her favorite song? What is Sarah's biggest regret? And lastly, is ugh an emotion? Thank you for watching. I will see you very soon. Bye.